How is your Black History Month progressing so far? Today is February 29th. Last day of Black History Month. Can you believe people got offended by what I said about Tim Scott a couple of episodes ago? Now, how could you possibly get offended when I prefaced calling him a token by saying, now don't get offended by this? I don't understand. Have you watched any Spike Lee movies this Black History Month? I haven't really seen any on. I did watch a little bit of Higher Learning. You remember Higher Learning. That's not Spike Lee, that's John Singleton. 1995. Ice Cube, Tyra Banks, Michael Rappaport, Rip from Yellowstone. I turned it on and said, holy smokes, Cole Hauser was in this movie. He's Rip from Yellowstone. Do you know how crazy we are? Michael Rappaport is still considered racist today because of the character he played in that movie. Meanwhile, Michael Rappaport is the whitest black guy out there. He's blacker than Al Sharpton, I think.
What you want, baby, I got it. What you need, you know I got it. All I'm asking is for a little respect when you just a little bit, baby, just a little bit.
Welcome to the Comparison Group Podcast. As I said, today is February 29th. Oh, wait a second. Go ahead.
What it means to me, R-E-S-P-E-C-T, R-E-S-P-E-C-T, C-F-T-C-T. What you want, baby, I got it. What you need, you know I got it.
All right, come on. We can't fool around. We got to get right down to business here. I got a lot to say, as usual. So let's get right to it. Joe Biden, one of the best presidents ever? Huh? Did you see the rankings? They ranked the presidents. By they, I mean, I don't know, some historians, presidential historians, scholars, whoever does this kind of thing. They do it every now and again. But they ranked the presidents. They put Joe Biden at number 14. Now, on MSNBC, that makes you one of the best presidents ever. I don't necessarily understand that, but okay. But strongly agree or strongly disagree. Personally, I think they should have left Joe off the list until his term is over. That's just my opinion. I don't think you should rank presidents while they're still in office, in their first term even. So that's just my opinion. Now, Donald Trump, dead last. Now, come on. They didn't have to do that. They could have just stopped at like 15. They could have just said, here's our top 15 or our top 20 and stop there. Once you get past 20, you're just embarrassing people. So they didn't have to rank the man dead last. But agree or disagree with Donald Trump dead last? Honestly, you know I'm not a fan of Trump, but worse than Andrew Jackson? I mean, Andrew Jackson committed genocide against the Native American population. And you're ranking Donald Trump worse than that? They ranked Andrew Jackson at 21 overall. So, I don't know. Ranked Andrew Jackson above George W. Bush. They put him at 32. Jimmy Carter at 22. George H.W. Bush was 19. Ronald Reagan, number 16. Biden, 14, of course. Clinton, number 12. LBJ, 9. Obama, 7. You know what was interesting? They looked at this by party also. And Republican rankers, the people who were Republican-leaning, who were doing the rankings, had Obama at 15. That's interesting to me. Overall, he ended up at 7, but the Republicans even put him at 15. They put Biden at number 30. So it's not like they just were just real kindly nice rankers. That's a weird word, rankers. During the rankings, they put Biden way down at 30, not 14. But Obama, they put at 15. Interesting. That's just interesting to me. That's all I'm saying about that. Lincoln was number 1, FDR number 2, George Washington number 3. So, back to Trump. Worst ever. Are they talking about the person or the presidency? Are they talking worst as in the worst person ever on the planet or the worst presidency? If they said, no, we're talking about the worst person ever to be president. Now, we're not talking about his presidency. We're just talking about the worst person to ever be in that office. I'd go, oh, okay, well, I see what you're saying now. I mean, comparison group. Who goes in front of a group of black people and says, you know, black people like me now because I'm indicted? They like the mugshot. Who says that? Who says that? That's a stereotype for gangster rappers. It gives you street cred if you're a criminal. I don't think there are black people out there saying, I won't go to the dentist unless he's been indicted at least twice. Yep, hanging in his office, his degree in dentistry next to his mugshot. I mean, I don't think black people are saying that. It's like Donald Trump walked out onto the stage at the Funny Bone and said, I'm going to do a tight 15 minutes of race humor, and then I'm going to get on up out of here. I mean, what is he doing? What is he doing? Listen to this maniac.
I'm being indicted for you, the American people. I'm being indicted for you, the black population. The mugshot, we've all seen the mugshot. And you know who embraced it more than anybody else? The black population. It's incredible. You see black people walking around with my mugshot. They do shirts and they sell them for $19 a piece. It's pretty amazing. Millions, by the way, millions of these things have been sold.
He is just too much. Donald Trump, sometimes you just play too doggone much. He's too much. He was speaking to black conservatives in South Carolina. Now, I don't know where he's getting his numbers from. Millions have been sold. Apparently all to black people for some reason. Apparently all black people like to buy these T-shirts with his mugshot on them. But this is the problem. This is the problem. Listen to me now. It's not when Trump mixes up Nikki Haley and Nancy Pelosi or Obama and Biden or thinks Biden is going to start World War II. It's not even when he appears to praise dictators or says he won't defend NATO countries if they haven't paid. That is not the problem. The problem is I have no idea if he really believes what he's saying here. I have no clue. I have no idea if he's so delusional he really believes there have been millions of T-shirts sold to black people who are wearing them in solidarity with him because he's been indicted like he's Rosa Parks or something. I have no idea whether or not he really believes that. And whether you support Trump or not, you cannot say 100% whether he believes that or not. You don't know. You don't know either. You don't know if he's joking or if he's dead serious. You would not bet your house on that answer, whether he's joking or he's dead serious. That's the problem. The other stuff I can explain. In some ways, I can even understand. The other stuff, the dictator stuff, the NATO stuff. Let me show you. First of all, mixing up names. I mean, come on. That can happen to the best of us. Saying World War II instead of World War III happens to the best of us. I mix up amnesty and asylum all the time. I mix up debt and deficit all the time. I mix up magnesium and calcium all the time. Happens to the best of us. Calcium to strengthen bones, magnesium for elasticity. Come on, keep up, people. Now, the other stuff, praising dictators, listen to this clip. Before I play it, I got to start doing this. I wish I didn't have to. This is not the typical political podcast. I'm not playing this clip to try and make some kind of a false equivalency or saying, oh, she did it, so he did it, and they all do it. Just listen to the clip, and then I will explain while I'm playing it. All right? Listen.
You write in your book something pretty funny. You talk about going to see Putin on something. Anyway, he takes you into his office, and he then asks if Bill Clinton would like to go tagging polar bears in the Arctic.
Yes.
Really macho, right?
Yes. Yes.
And you say, well, I'll see about his schedule, but otherwise I'll go.
I did.
Yeah, but the funny is that he gave you a funny look. As if this woman...
Yeah, so he and I go back and forth, but that was a moment when I was able to make a connection with him, and that's why I write about it, because he always comes with an agenda. And if you ever see him on TV or in pictures, he sits, very kind of in a very aggressive way, and just listens and sort of stares at you, and he never really agrees or has anything like a back and forth conversation. It's very dismissive. So this had been going on with me in one of my meetings with him, but I knew that he cared about something I care about, which is wildlife conservation, particularly of endangered species. So I out of the blue, we were talking about something that he was not happy to be talking about. And I finally said, well, President Putin, I understand that you are trying to save the tigers and the polar bears and other endangered species. And he came awake. He sat up. He said, come with me. He marched me out of the room. We went down the stairs, down the long hall, into an office that surprised all of his security people who jumped up, into an inner sanctum, just he and I. And we went way at the back of this room where he had this enormous map of Russia. And he said, let me show you where those endangered species are. And he was telling me about the tigers in Siberia and the polar bears and all that. And then he said, I'm going to go up and tag them. And do you think your husband, Bill Clinton, would like to come? And I said, well, I don't know. I'll ask him, but he's pretty busy. But, I'll come if he can't. It was not reciprocated.
Yeah, but that's my point. If you were president and a woman, it would be weird to deal with him, do you think?
No, because I think you have to deal with him with a combination of patience and persistence and strength. And therefore, change up is not all bad, trying to figure out how you can find any common ground. I mean, we have to stand our ground against him and his recent behavior, but we also need to keep trying to find common ground.
So that's a clip from 2014. Okay? So it's before the invasion of Ukraine. It's before, obviously, the killing of Navalny. But it's after the annexation of Crimea and Ukraine. It's after the killing of a whole bunch of other people. It's after a ton of bad stuff from Putin. And you hear Hillary Clinton being what she is, a diplomat. She's being a diplomat. She's saying, look, I tried to find common ground. I brought up this particular thing that I knew he cared about. And I said, I'll go tag animals with you, Putin. Trying to do anything to improve the relationship with this man. Because that's what diplomats do when they know it's necessary for stability in the world. Now, agree or disagree, Donald Trump is saying some similar things. I mean, you could find plenty of clips of Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama saying Putin is smart. I'm sorry, but you can. You can find plenty of clips. There was actually one that I heard, and I was going to play it, but I'm not going to play it, but because I know you trust me. You can find plenty of clips of them saying Putin is smart. So when Donald Trump does it, when Donald Trump says, Putin is smart, or this one's smart, that one's smart, Xi in China, he's smart. He's not really a diplomat. I mean, in my opinion, he's not a diplomat, and he's not exercising diplomacy. What he's doing is he's doing what he knows how to do as a businessman. He's trying to flatter. Why? Because that's what he likes. That's what gets him to do what you want him to do, flattering him. And so he's doing what he does as a businessman that he thinks is going to be effective with Putin or Orban or Little Kim in North Korea or Xi in China. He's flattering. That's what he does when he stands up there and everybody freaks out and goes, oh, my God, he's praising dictators. He's praising dictators. Well, it's similar. It's the same thing that you'll hear Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama doing when they were in office, when she was Secretary of State and she had to deal with him. It's the same thing. Agree or disagree? Now, listen, let down your defenses and really think about it. Agree or disagree? I think that is the case. If I was listening to this, I would say I agree, but Trump is naive. That's what I think. I think, yes, they're doing two similar things. They're trying to build a better relationship with these dictators around the world. They're trying to improve the relationship. They're trying to find some common ground. They're trying to work together. But Trump is doing it in a very naive way. If he thinks that flattering these people are going to get them to cut some sort of deal that's going to benefit America, he's out of his mind. Again, that's the problem. That's the problem. If only the media would analyze it that way, I think we would be far better off. That's the problem. He's very naive to think what he's doing is going to work. Let me give you another one. Listen to this.
NATO was busted until I came along. I said, everybody's going to pay. They said, well, if we don't pay, are you still going to protect us? I said, absolutely not. They couldn't believe the answer. I came in, I made a speech, and I said, you got to pay up. They asked me that question. One of the presidents of a big country stood up and said, well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? I said, you didn't pay? You're delinquent? He said, yes, let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills. Most politicians have said to that, yes, we will protect you under any circumstance. Well, then they're never paying up. I said, no, you have to understand, you don't pay your bills, you get no protection. It's very simple. Hundreds of billions of dollars came into NATO, and that's why they have money today, because of what I did.
Now, here's the problem for Trump haters. He ain't wrong. Donald Trump is not wrong there. As much as the left is freaking out about that comment, Donald Trump is not wrong. As arrogant as he is, he's not even wrong about saying that he got more money for NATO. The NATO Secretary General at the time when Donald Trump was in office confirmed on a couple of occasions, yes, the pressure that Donald Trump put on those countries did help to get more money into NATO. I can't sit here and play clip after clip after clip. It'll make the show 2 hours long. So some of the stuff, you either got to trust me on it or go fact check it yourself. Go fact check it yourself. I'm telling you, the Secretary General of NATO said Donald Trump's pressure did help. I have a clip sitting right here, right now in front of me that I'm debating whether or not to play. It's an interview with the Secretary General of NATO back 6 years ago discussing this very topic. And the interviewer says to him, what do you think Trump's saying here? And the guy says, Trump is saying there's a limit. There is a limit to how much America will do if European countries are not doing what they're supposed to do. You have 28 countries in NATO. 5 were meeting their commitment at the time that Donald Trump said that. And the NATO Secretary General was very clear. That's not acceptable. And that's what Donald Trump is saying. And he ain't wrong. And the woman says, well, did you welcome that pressure? And he kind of said, I think he did. I think he did. I think the Secretary General of NATO did welcome the pressure from Donald Trump at the time. Once again, the problem is he's Donald Trump. He's Donald Trump. He cannot get that businessman persona out of him, even the way he talks. You're delinquent? You're delinquent? Who says that? Who says that to a country in NATO? You say that to somebody who owes you rent. And that's the way the man thinks. Everything is in terms of his business. You're delinquent in your rent, you get the F out. That's how he thinks. But once again, he's not wrong. If you're in a club and you're supposed to pay dues to the club and you're not paying your dues, but you're getting all the benefits of being in the club, well, how long is that supposed to continue? And so if NATO countries, the 28 NATO, I guess 29 now, this is maybe 29 or 30, have we added 2 since Ukraine was attacked? But the 29 or 30 NATO countries are supposed to commit 2% of their GDP to NATO defense. Now, I don't have to tell you how much that means for the U.S. with our $28 trillion GDP. That's a lot of money. That is a whole lot of money that we have been paying on time every time. And there's only 4 other countries doing the same. And you're pissed off at Donald Trump for bringing it up because he's not diplomatic about it? Well, listen, at some point, we got to start to ask, is that behind the scenes diplomacy not getting it done? If going behind the scenes and going, hey, listen, by the way, you were a little late last time with your NATO payment. If you could just, kind of get caught up on that. Oh, golly gee, we sure would have that ain't working. That ain't working. So maybe the arrogance and the ignorance and the business-like approach of it on this particular instance is not something to freak out as much as Donald Trump saying millions of black people are buying T-shirts with his mugshot on them. Like I said, that's the problem. This NATO thing, this dictator thing, for me, it's not really that much of a problem. I can understand it and I can explain it. Agree or disagree. Now, again, let down your defenses and really think about it. You can say, you know what, comparison group guy, you make a pretty strong argument there. I do agree with you, but NATO is not a business. The United States of America is not a business. It's not Donald Trump's business, and that's what he doesn't understand. He cannot separate the two. He cannot separate the presidency and his business. So that's all. Look at it that way. We just immediately think, I must disagree. I must disagree with what you're saying. Donald Trump is horrible. He's a horrible person, and everything that flies out of his mouth is horrible and wrong. There's nothing he could possibly say that could possibly be right. No, this is something he's saying that could possibly be right. NATO got to pay. The NATO countries got to pay. And if you don't pay, you don't get the protection. He's absolutely right. To say it. To do it, that's another story. That's the difference. That's another story. And for that, well, I believe that is not within Donald Trump's control. I really don't. I just don't. If he was to get reelected as president and he said, Russia, go ahead, do whatever you want. If he would dare to say that, I don't think that would go over too well at the Department of Defense, at the Pentagon. I just don't. And I think there would be some reckoning for him on that occasion. My opinion. It's one thing to say it. It's one thing to stand up on there on that stage and do your routine and be all masculine and all the bravado. And I would say this and I would do that and I would say this. And then it's another thing once you're president and in that office, what you're actually going to do. That's my opinion. Now, again, you can agree or disagree with my opinion. But what you can, I think, hopefully agree with is the way people have been reacting and talking about Trump. It ain't working. Freaking out every time he has a brain fart clearly is not working. I don't even know who these people are freaking out for. I swear, I don't know who Morning Joe on MSNBC is freaking out for. The Trump supporters aren't watching his show, listening to him, caring what he says. So who is he carrying on for now? Everybody that already thinks Donald Trump is crazy. Who are all of these people all over Twitter and social media and this John Cooper tweeting every 5 seconds and this one and that one every 5 seconds about how crazy Donald Trump is and what an abomination it is that Donald Trump said this and said. Who is that for? You have no followers that are Trump supporters. So you're just telling the people over and over and over and over and over again what they already know. It ain't working. That's all I'm saying. It ain't working. I'm trying to give you an alternative way to look at this man and go after this man because what you're doing ain't working. He locked up the GOP nomination before the Iowa caucuses even started. He's got an ironclad grip on the Republican Party. So who is the media spending all this time trying to convince he's crazy? Maybe it's time to try and convince people, Donald Trump will be really bad at this job if he got it again. He wasn't that great the first time around, and he would be even worse the second time around if you listen to what he says. Maybe it's better to convince people of that. Stop trying to convince him that Donald Trump is crazy and just convince him, he really wouldn't be that good at this job. Now, you're not going to convince Trump supporters of that. You're not going to convince the majority of the Republican voters of that. But once again, remember, you're not trying to. You're trying to convince independents that. Independents, the people that go, you know what, I don't care. Both parties are a mess. It makes no difference. I'm not going to vote. I'm going to leave it blank. I'm going to vote third party. I'm going to make a protest vote. Those are the people you're trying to convince. What's the use? Stop with the alienation. Stop alienating people. Stop calling people MAGA. Just stop with that. Let Donald Trump call his people MAGA. You don't have to call them MAGA. They're Americans. Joe Biden, as I said, stop pitting one group against another group and pit yourself against Donald Trump and make the case. He has no ability to separate his businessman persona and the job of being a public servant, a statesman, a diplomat. He has no ability to separate his immense sense of self-importance and need for gratification and the role of being a public servant, accepting responsibility and making the priority to serve the American people, not yourself. Donald Trump has no ability to do that. And if you can't do that, you cannot be president. Now, a lot of people must say, well, Biden, he ain't no better. And that's fine. But you got to make a decision. You got to make a decision based on what you see. Who's going to be worse? If you got two people, two worse, who's the worst of the worst? That's the decision that we're facing. That's the corner we painted ourselves into. If you don't like that, stop painting yourself into that corner. But that's the decision that we have. Who's going to be the worst of the worst? Let's do some other ones. Agree or disagree. And my goal here is to prove to you sometimes we don't even agree with ourselves, and we don't even know it. I have a problem, or I'm at least suspicious of people who strongly agree or strongly disagree with a lot of things, especially when it comes to politics. I find very little in politics that I can say I strongly agree or strongly disagree with. So agree or disagree. The Democratic Party has the best domestic agenda for the people in this country. Agree or disagree? Trick question. It's a trick question. Don't say you agree or don't say you disagree. It's a trick question. It depends. It depends. Why do we sit and argue this? It's so obvious. I have to buy a new printer. So I go online. I look up reviews for printers. I try and find a site that's not biased because they get a kickback. So I got to check several different sites. Or I got to go to one that from past experience I know I can trust. And they give me a list. And they say, this is the best overall printer. This is the best printer for high capacity printing. This is the best printer if you're on a budget. This is the best in print quality. There's rarely one answer for everyone. It depends. Why would policies and politics be any different? It depends. Depends if you're poor. Depends if you live in cities. Depends if you're 18 to 34. Depends if you're 55 or older. That's basic common sense. Basic common sense. It all depends. Now, there's decency in policy that we should all agree on, but the rest, it all depends. Who's got the better policy at the time? Depends even on what state the economy's in at the time. Some things work under certain circumstances, don't work under other circumstances. Why do we think it's so cut and dry? The Democratic Party is the best party. No, the Republican Party is the best party. Silly. Agree or disagree? Next one. Agree or disagree? The American taxpayer should not have to bail out businesses that act irresponsibly and make the same mistakes over and over again. Agree or disagree? Okay. I appear to be getting a whole lot of strongly agrees on that one. Good. Now, agree or disagree? The American taxpayer should not have to bail out individuals that act irresponsibly and make the same mistake over and over. I got a problem with bailing out businesses that act irresponsibly. I got a problem with bailing out individuals that act irresponsibly. When I was young, many years ago, I bought a convertible sports car. What a dumb thing to do. What a dumb thing to do. I couldn't afford it. I didn't need it. The salesman told me, if you buy this car, you're going to be beating the women off with a stick. The only thing I was beating off with a stick was debt collectors when I ruined my credit. It was a horrible, horrible mistake. Oh, if I only had those thousands of dollars back that I spent on that car. What a stupid mistake. I'd like to tell you I was 9 years old when I made that mistake, but I was probably in my 20s when I did that. But okay, that's what happens when you're young and dumb. When you're in your late teens, early 20s, we make mistakes. We do stupid things. That cost us a lot of money. It's probably better my love life didn't improve with that car. I didn't make the mistake of having a child I couldn't afford at the time. But people make those mistakes. Now, if you make those mistakes over and over and over again, if after I bought that car, I bought another car I couldn't afford, and then another car I couldn't afford, and then another car I couldn't afford, all the way up into my 40s, I'm making the same mistake, well, as a taxpayer, would you want to keep bailing me out by giving me some sort of assistance because I'm struggling, because I'm making bad decisions? Of course not. Of course not. Or I should say, agree or disagree. I shouldn't answer for you. Do you agree or disagree with that? But it seems like sometimes now, in this moment, we got people saying everybody's an angel on earth. Everybody's an angel on earth. And nobody makes any mistakes. And nobody does anything wrong. And people are struggling. And the only reason people are struggling is because the rich people won't give them any money. The rich people won't trickle on them. Well, no, some people are struggling because they make bad mistakes. Let's be honest. A big one is health care. That's a big one. We got to give people health care. It's a human right, a basic human right, Bernie would tell you. If these rich people would just pay a little more in taxes, we could give everybody health care. And you know, progressives are very interesting because they have this blind spot. Yes, the for-profit healthcare industry is atrocious. It's just absolutely ridiculous. There's no reason you should go to the hospital and pay $50 for an aspirin. We get that. But at the same time, people got to try to be a little more healthy, don't they? In this country, you got to be a little more healthy. You go to any other country and you say, hey, what's for dessert? Sleep, bedtime. You eat and you go to sleep. That's what's for dessert. But here, the dessert aisle in the grocery store is the length of a football field. You go to Mexico and ask for ice, they'll look at you like you're crazy. Ice! Ice! Doggone Americans. Where are we supposed to get ice? The ingredients for ice are water and cold. And they're like, we ain't got neither one of those in Mexico. So at some point, we have to look at our indulgence, our consumption in this country to point at some of our healthcare issues as well as the healthcare industry. Agree or disagree? As a taxpayer, I don't want to be on the hook to have to pay for somebody who has to drag an oxygen tank around at the age of 30 because they've been smoking since they were 2. I don't want to have to pay for that. Ooh, I got to stay focused. I'm getting off on a tangent. I can't do that because I want to get through a couple of these. Agree or disagree? Media outlets' number one priority should be getting information as accurate as possible, not fast, and not for ratings. Their number one priority should not be ratings. Agree or disagree? So why is it the media that gets the biggest rating is rarely the most accurate? Rarely the most accurate. I want people to listen to this podcast. I really do. I want people to listen. It might be hard to tell sometimes, but I do. But I don't need people to listen. I don't have a company or a boss or a producer breathing down my neck saying, your numbers are down, your numbers are down. We need you to pick it up for the next ratings. I won't lose my job if the numbers dip next month. So I don't need people to listen. I'm also not trying to get people to listen. If I was, I would do the show more in line with what I know people would find more appealing. You know, what people want to hear, as opposed to the way I do it now, where I know there are people out there going, I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear this. I know it's much harder for people to see themselves sharing this type of show because they go, I like what he said here, but I don't necessarily like what he said here. And if I share it with my friends, are they going to think I think what he said is right? Oh, I don't know. So it's just tougher. But I think it's the better and the correct way to do a podcast. We have this incredible medium where anybody can do it, anyone. And you can say anything you want to say. And then people start a political podcast and they sound exactly like Rachel Maddow. Or they sound exactly like Tucker Carlson. Or they sound exactly like Sean Hannity. Or they sound exactly like Anderson Cooper. Well, what the heck is the point of that? What the heck is the point of doing a podcast where you can say anything you want to say and just copying what they're doing over there? What's the point of that? To me, it just doesn't make for a good information source. We need information sources that are not trying to get people to listen and information sources that don't need people to listen, in my opinion. Agree or disagree? I'm going to try and do one, maybe two more, okay? Agree or disagree, listen to this. This is Killer Mike from Bill Maher on HBO. Listen to this.
What are your feelings on the election coming up? I mean, Biden and Trump. Are you as depressed about that as most people as a choice?
My feeling is pick your policy, not your person. Find out. This is not the Dallas Cowboys versus your favorite team. This is the policies that will affect our generations for the next 20, 30, 40 years to come. So close your eyes, listen to the policies that are being pushed, and pay attention even to the people who don't have a chance of winning because they're going to say policies you may want to push. And I would say do that, but make it policy-based.
So that means you're for...
That means I'm for black people and happy Black History Month.
But you're not saying one candidate over the other?
Hey, man, my nigga, you ain't going to get me in no trouble tonight.
I had to leave in there the part where he won't say who he's going to vote for. I mean, it's just amazing with some people. It's just amazing. He's a Bernie guy, Killer Mike. If you don't know him, I don't know him. Guy won 3 Grammys in the last Grammys. I couldn't tell you a song he does. I'm out of it. Man, I'm out of it. But he's a rapper and an activist, and he's a Bernie guy. And sticking to the point, agree or disagree with what he said. Pick the policy, not the person. Now, in complete honesty, when I first heard that, I said, yes, right away. I agreed. Then I said, no, wait a second. What am I saying? No, that's wrong. It's wrong to say, pick the policy, not the person. You can't say that. Because policies are ideas, and ideas are only as good as the people who execute them. I've said that many times, made that case many times here. It's why so many things go awry. It's why so many things for progressives go awry. They have great ideas, but they can't execute on them, And the reason why they can't execute on them is because everything has to line up perfectly for their great ideas to work. For example, child care tax credit, give it to women. They can pay to have their children taken care of. They can go out and work and add to the economy. Well, the only way that doesn't work is, A, if there are no jobs for the women to go out and take where they live and they're part of the country, as in West Virginia, for instance, or if the person you give that check to goes, I'm a couple months behind on my car payment. I sure wish I had some money to pay that, but all I got sitting here is a $600 child care tax credit check. What to do? Of course they're going to use the money for what they need to use the money for. They're not always going to use it to go get child care and then go get a job. So it's a great idea. Logically, it makes a ton of sense, but it just doesn't work. You have to have people to figure out how to make it work. You just can't put the idea out there, pass the bill, and go, oh, time to celebrate. Everybody's taken care of. No, you need people to make these ideas work. That's what progressives, once again, in my humble opinion, are always missing. They have a blind spot. They have this big, huge blind spot where they're always missing the obvious. Thinking that the person with the best idea in the room wins every time, unfortunately, it's just not the case. You need the right person to execute the policy or idea. That includes a person smart enough to surround themselves with good people. That takes an ability. You need those people to buy in. You need them to buy in on your idea. You just can't assume everyone's on board because you're convinced your idea is so good. You need to be willing to adjust, to adapt your idea to the obstacles that will surely come up. You need to be open to criticism of your idea because any idea can be made stronger by more input. Now, does any of that sound like Bernie Sanders? No, Bernie Sanders has been a it's my way or the highway guy for the 100 years in Congress. He never is open to criticism of his ideas. He never is open to adapting his ideas. He's been saying for 100 years straight, if the 1% of the half of the 1% and the top 10% would pay been saying the same thing for 100 years. No change, no adaptation, no consideration that maybe you might be able to tweak that idea a bit. And it's why very few of his bold ideas ever come to fruition. Ever. I got to wrap up. I'm going to give you one last one. Agree or disagree? I know all I need to know. Agree or disagree? Don't we act like that sometimes? Doesn't it feel like people act like that now more than ever? Especially anyone who might be left in your life that you disagree with politically that you still talk to? When you try and talk to them, they act like, I don't need to know that. I know all I need to know. You don't need to tell me anything. Back in 2023, all the news could talk about was AI. AI. Every news outlet. AI. What's it mean? What's it going to do? Check out this chat GPT. Look how amazing it is. Now, some people saw those stories and said, I know all I need to know. I don't need to know nothing about no AI. I don't understand it. I ain't going to understand it. It ain't for me. My job doesn't have anything to do with AI. And so they just kind of ignored the stories. Then there were other people who said, cha-ching, cha-ching, time to cash in. Where do I go? Where do I go to cash in on this AI? And everyone who asked that question had essentially the same answer. Everyone knew. I want to make that very clear to you. It was not a secret. Everyone knew. NVIDIA. If you want to cash in on this AI, NVIDIA stock is the stock you want to buy. Back around January 2023, the stock was about $146 a share. Now it's trading at $776 a share. It's up 1,885% over the last 5 years. But make no mistake, most of that has been in the last year and a half. And everyone knew. Anyone who was paying attention. Anyone who cared to pay attention. Anyone who cared to learn. Anyone who cared to go to an information source that would tell them. NVIDIA. So if you had $10,000 laying around, and who didn't have $10,000 laying around in 2023, and you invested it, you'd have about $52,000 right now. So I'm not a millionaire. Can't retire off of that, But if I told you back in January 2023, do this and you'll have $52,000, you'll have an extra $42,000 in essentially a year, would you do it? Would you feel pretty good about that? Would you feel like a sucker if you didn't do it? If you missed it? Don't have 10 grand? You got $1,000? I'll give you another one. Carvana stock. If you invested in Carvana back in January 2023, $1,000, you'd have $20,000 right now. Carvana. All you got to do is be curious. All you got to do is change your way of thinking that says, I'm just going to go get the same information from the same source because I know all I need to know. I know all I need to know. If we thought about politics the way we think about money, and if we're missing out on money in terms of missing out on information in our politics, if we thought about those two things in the same way, we'd be a lot more eager to go and get that information. But it does affect us money-wise, having the information or not having the information. It just might take longer. It might affect us when it's time to retire. It might affect us when it's time for us to finally decide to bite the bullet and open up a business, to go for it. It might affect us when it's time to say, okay, I think I'm ready to go ahead and start a family now. Really understanding what's going on in the political realm, cutting through the noise, cutting through the nonsense, it's important. But the only way you can do that is by not thinking, I know all I need to know. I'll just go to my same information sources that I go to. They'll tell me what I need to know, and that's all I need to know. We listen to what makes us comfortable. That's all. We listen to what makes us comfortable. There are some things we listen to, it intimidates us because we don't understand it. To turn on CNBC or some financial channel, it intimidates us because we don't understand it. But that shouldn't be the case. That's what getting information is all about, learning. I want information that makes me money, but I also want information that makes me smarter. I want information that makes me healthier. I want information that makes me understand people and communicate better. I want information that helps me to contribute to the common good. Information that corrects my misinterpretations on past information. I want all of that. And all of that is only possible if I admit to myself, I don't know all I need to know. Agree or disagree? That's the show. Thank you so much for listening. Remember to follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, anywhere you get podcasts. Stay tuned for some important announcements coming up in the future. I don't want to give anything away right now, but I want to prepare my regular listeners for some subtle changes that may be coming to the podcast. I don't just give ideas and suggestions here. I'm willing to take ideas and suggestions. So I'm looking to maybe make some changes to clear up what I think might be some potential confusion about the podcast. You'll understand more in the future. But in any case, please keep listening. Please follow, please share, and please rate. Please, please, please. Don't make me beg. Please. If people go and they look at the show and they go, it's got no ratings, got no followers, it must not be any good. If you like the show, please rate it. Please, it helps. It matters. If you don't think it does, it does. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.